I became a Catholic. Believe it or not, I was studying to be a priest. All this other stuff, being a Catholic, you know. But then, by going to Catholic school, I started. You read a lot. You read a lot. They teach you some history. Then, as I got older, I became a Democrat because everybody else is a Democrat. So you just go along with the program. You blame the white folks, and everything's okay. But then you never gain nothing. But they always fighting for you, but you never gain nothing. You still, like you said, bunch of crabs in a barrel. But being a Catholic, I did everything. I traveled, saw the world different. Even though I still got the same friends today, when I go back to St. Louis every other week. It's totally different. Then when I got to California, got out the Marine Corps, and then just things. Started my own business, worked for myself. I've been working for myself since 1992. Don't know what a time clock looked like. I don't even know how I got here today. But what actually happened was, after seeing all the stuff that was going on, one Sunday night, I was at my house, didn't have nothing to do, flipping the channel, and I heard this guy named Terry Anderson. He said, "If you ain't American, you wake up," something like that. And I started listening to this guy talk about what was going on in L.A., but I wasn't paying no attention because all the guys that I knew that were Hispanic, like I tell everybody, let's tell the truth. They're Europeans speaking Spanish. That's it. That's it. The Europeans speaking Spanish. And so when we went to, a long time ago, me and Ted, I saw Ted at a couple of Republican things, right? So I came up to this brother. I said, "Hey, man, we got to fix this problem, you know." I said, "It's great that you helping the homeless, but the homeless, everybody else getting all this money, we ain't getting nothing. We need somebody to get out there and do something." You know, I was with this group, go there every Saturday, talk about stuff. Earl Ferrari Hutchinson, every news commentator want to talk to Earl about everything. So we go about talking about the illegal immigration thing. "Oh no, James, okay, he's all for it." And the next thing you know, they get a little money, they're on the other side. We brought, who was that? Jim Gilchrist. We sent Gilchrist off. They started out the Minuteman started out of Leimert Park. We brought them to Leimert Park to go to D.C. We've been to D.C. several times. But it took me a long time to get Ted aboard. Look, man, we got something nobody else has. The 13th, the 14th, the 15th Amendment. We had a Civil Rights Act of 1866. What are we talking about, the Civil Rights Act of 64 and all this stuff? Man, if we read the meat of the thing, like I told Ted, we don't read. Every time I hear somebody talking about they're constitutionalists, well then, where's the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment? We was in D.C. one time at a demonstration. We sitting at this fancy restaurant eating dinner. Two congressmen sitting next to us, and they were talking about the Charleston, who sunk the what? Who sunk the Charleston or something? Ted explained to him. He said, "What are you guys up here for?" "Oh, we're up here for this immigration rally." "What's that?" We're here for the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment. What is that? I mean, go ask your politicians. Nothing wrong with what you just said about voting, women voting, right? The 13th Amendment abolished slavery and said, "Hey, if you act a fool, we can treat you as a slave." The 14th Amendment gave us indentured servants and slaves citizenship to our children. The 15th Amendment gave us the right to vote. So then, why would you say women had to wait to get to vote? Go look at the 15th Amendment. I got a cousin, a top lawyer in Mississippi, walking and marching with Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson about the Voters' Rights Act. I said, "Look, you're an attorney. Read the 15th Amendment. You had a right to vote. We just had them Jim Crow laws that they put up, and that Voting Rights Act was for Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia." Yeah, and like I said, and then if you look at it, all the people in the South and the South during that time were Democrats. Bull Connor, all of them. And see, most people don't believe it. I'm 61 years old. I lived under Jim Crow law. I know what it is to go to the back door, to the side door. And I'm only 61 years old. Everybody thinks this happened 100 years ago. I didn't know my father was taking our lives every time we left St. Louis to go to Mississippi every other weekend. Every summer, I was dropped off for 3 months. My brothers and sisters dropped off 3 months with my mama, my grandmama, my granddaddy. know what I'm saying? And my family worked for the wealthiest people in the town. And at that time, as long as I didn't turn 15, I could swim in the pool. I could do anything. We could do anything we wanted in the house. But as you got older, rules changed. Just like they said, most of them wasn't racist. They were saying, hey, in order for us to survive, we got to go along with the program. And that's what we're doing now. We're going along with a program that we are in charge. And I like it too. I became a Republican too. And I believed everything the Republicans was doing until, like I said, you have to start reading for yourself, read for yourself. And then you realize there's no difference between the Democrat and the Republican Party. There's no difference. There's no difference. If you look at it, when they told me, I said, they keep saying, I'm a conservative. What is a conservative? What is a conservative? What is a conservative? Whatever you want to be that day. You get Paul Ryan in there. And what did he do? Everybody said, well, guess what? Funding all that was it, an omnibus bill? Oh, yeah, we're going to fight for it. We're going to fight for it. And then what did they do? They passed it. Then they come back to tell you, Donald Trump, you're not conservative enough. You're not a conservative enough. You know what a conservative is? If somebody get up and speak something good, then he goes in the back room. Somebody else come up to the mic and said, hey, how did you like what I said? Great, yeah. And the guy in the back room said, well, you know, we said that. The Civil Rights Act. Who passed the Civil Rights Act? Anybody know who passed the Civil Rights Act? Do the Republicans say that? If they call us a wimp, what do? We wimp too. You believe you're a wimp. And the Democrat Party has beat us. Like I used to tell people, if you call me a spade, I'm going to call you a spade back. The Republican Party, what do? Well, okay, we'll see what we can do tomorrow. That's what's to happen. That's why we are in such a strait that we're in now. And I'm glad, Ted, because I said, they scared of the 13th, 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment, that's it. They threw. Guess what? There is no such thing as a grandfather clause. All of them got to go back home. Vera Lugosa. All of them. We had a thing and there was and this thing about black and brown unity, there is none. They're killing each other in L.A. That's what I'm saying, but we're being quiet about it. We're being quiet about it. They only here to do what? And like I tell most people, the Republican Party is a great party. We don't know how to get our message across. You know how I get my message across to my friends when they talk about Donald Trump? So Donald Trump's a racist, man. How could you vote for Donald Trump? I said, let me ask you a question. You got a house? Yeah. What if you come home, there's 15 other people in your house, you don't even know them. But you open up the door and you say, hey, what are you guys doing here? They say, oh, we're looking for a better life. We just want to chill and kick back and relax. You got a nice pool. You got these nice cars out we can drive. Hey, what's wrong with that? And what the first thing they say? I said, what you gonna do, man? Oh, man, I'm gonna call the police and get them out of here because they don't belong here. I said, well, Dad, worse than Donald Trump. What you mean? You're a racist too. You putting these people out. These people just want a good life. And I can't wait till Barbra Streisand leave and Samuel L. Jackson leave. All of them. But no, guess what? Ain't nobody invite them into their house. Nobody's invited to their house, only your house. And guess what? You leave the back door open and don't say nothing. I'm sorry to take so much time, but Senator Pierce, and also when Senator Pierce passed that bill, me, Ted, and a group of us came here. Every time y'all had something in Arizona, we came here from L.A. Because like I said, if it's at our door now, it'll be at your door later. So excuse the rambling, but that's how I am. All right, thank you.
Might as well be ready. That is just so amazing, and I've recently just met you, Ted, but he has told the story of you nagging him, and it's just not easy. I think somebody one day is going to do a documentary on being a black Republican or conservative and your coming out story, and how you tell your family, and you know, I think I'm a Republican, and they'd rather you, if you were on crack, they're like, at least we can send her to rehab, and there's some hope for her. But did you hear she's a Republican? And that's how I get introduced everywhere I go. Now, this is my niece. She's a crazy Republican. Used to be Stephanie with the 5 kids. Now it's Stephanie. She's a crazy Republican. I'm like, just nice to meet you, and just, you know, why do we got to bring it up? But it is a great conversion story, and we love to tell it. And so with that, without further ado, one of the people that made this whole thing all possible, Ted Hayes. Go
ahead. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, patriots, American patriots, Arizonians. First thing I need to do is this doesn't look right. Well, I have difficulty holding things. That's okay. All right. First of all, thanking God for His mercy upon my life. I shouldn't be here at all, but for some reason He thinks I should, and I'm learning to accept that reality in my life. And I found that the more I accept that and profess and confess that, the better and clearer things get. I would like to initially, though, apologize to all of you for all the crazy mishaps of the last week here. It was crazy, and I'm taking responsibility for it. No one's at fault for what happened this past week. Not the speaker, David Gowan, not the young man, the representative, Reginald Boulding. It's not his fault. It's no one's fault. If there is a fault, it's me. Bad calculations. But, you know, it's always good to know that He's your real reward. God got your back. And apparently it's going to work out a lot better than what we even had planned. We wish we could have been at the state capitol now. 5 years ago, Senator Russell Pierce, when James mentioned that we'd come out to support the brother, because we called him our Abraham Lincoln at that time, because, you know, people say illegal immigration hurts all U.S. citizens, but white folks told us this, that it hurts black people more than anybody else. And they would always say, where y'all black people at? How come y'all not standing up? Because it's really about y'all. And when we heard about Russell Pierce and his SB 1070 battle, we called Eric Johnson, who was the Senator's special assistant, and spoke with him about our concerns that we wanted to come and support the Senator. And finally we did come out and support, and we held some rallies. We challenged certain things, and then we just asked Senator Pierce if he would be willing, as the President of the Senate, to allow us to hold a civil rights conference on the 14th Amendment on the Senate floor. And Senator Pierce graciously made that happen without any to do. He said, let's do it. And we did it, and we brought in Katrina Pierce. Y'all know Katrina Pierce, who she is? She's a spokeswoman for Mr. Trump. But we brought in her guy, Kenny Manuelson, to help us organize. And we had my apologies. And it was a wonderful time. It was the first time in the history of the United States that any state legislature dared to hold a civil rights conference on its chamber floor about a matter around black lives. Powerful. Senator Russell Pierce made that happen. And you Arizonans have that now as your legacy. And I believe we're going to get back on the state assembly floor. I'm going to go and speak with Mr. Gowan. I'm going to ask him again, can we start over? I'm going to get, we have someone here today. She'll stand up. Just stand up, sister, would you please? This is Catherine McKinney. Catherine McKinney is, and maybe we'll have her say a word or two later on, but Catherine McKinney is a great woman. She has an organization called Women in Faith, Black Women of Faith. Black Women of Faith, am I correct, Catherine? And she's a real activist, and she happens to be one of the campaign managers for Representative Reginald Boulding. Am I correct about that? And she is also the chairperson and the leader of the Phoenix Black Lives Matter movement. So we have some really good representation here, and I've had an opportunity to speak with my sister. She's very supportive of what we're doing, And she's talked with Ron about this as well. So I want you to welcome Miss Catherine Mackinnon. Thank you, Catherine. Okay. I want to acknowledge Ron Lutters. I was introduced to Ron Lutters through Pam Stevenson. And I went to Ron's, we got to talking about all this 14th Amendment business with Ron, and he invited me to come out to the Pioneer Village and spoke out there. And Ron and I have been working tirelessly pretty much on this, getting it together. And without Ron Lutters, we wouldn't be here at this part, because he allowed us his office and space and resources to make this happen. So I want to acknowledge Ron for his and of course my good friends Valerie and George. Without them, I would have no place to stay when I come to town. and they've been a very good support and friend. And all of the rest of you, Gabby, everybody, I can't take the time to go into all of that. But I just want to say that, if I can, focus us on what we want to do today, how we want to end this thing up here. If we would enforce the 14th Amendment as intended, several things will happen, folks. The first and foremost thing that will happen, if we enforce the 14th Amendment as intended, it will begin to heal the wound, the race wound, the slavery race wound that in our country. This wound that all of us are suffering, none of us are guilty of. None of us caused this. We were born into this wound. It was born in July 4th, 1776, when the U.S. founding fathers broke away from the British Empire, and we inherited this problem from the British Empire, or challenge, and it behooves us to fix it, and we will. And one of the main things that happened was that, you know, and believe me, I know all lives matter. Absolutely, all lives matter. There's no question about that. Every human being was important. God made us all in His image and equal. But something very special happened in this country, where those of us who were of black African descent, I don't know if you read in the paper when we put out the press release, we said that we used the term Anglo-English-speaking Caucasians, white people. 740,000 of those Anglo-English-speaking white people, primarily boys, white boys. And I'm not saying that in a derogatory term, white boy. I'm saying it in the term of these were young men, many of them literally boys, who went to war with each other, North and South, 150 years ago, went to war with each other, stood 15, 20 feet away from one another, and blew each other's brains out, blew each other's hearts out. Cannon fodder. Them boys died. About what? A matter concerning black lives. The Africans who were here. They say that this is a nation of immigrants. It's a nation of immigrants built on the back of chattel slaves. These happen to be black lives. And those boys died over this matter. And without them, we black lives would not be where we are. And I wanted to draw a distinct difference between the whites who spoke Spanish, as James pointed out, European-based Spanish people. That's what they speak, but they're still white people. They're Caucasians. So when they tell you, Ron Lutters, as quote-unquote light-skinned white as you are, that you are a racist because you say to them you can't cross the border illegally, or Senator Pierce, you are a racist because well, they're white too. See, at least that's what their birth certificate says. That's what the country says. And we wanted to make a clear distinction here as to what's going on. See, this fight that happened between these Anglo-English white people over the matter of black lives had nothing to do with them, Asians, or anybody else that came to this country post the Civil War. This is a thing that happened in our house, and it needs to be acknowledged, because one of the problems that we're having in our country is y'all white folks don't know who you are. You don't appreciate who you are. And everybody comes into your country. This is your country. You found it. You built it. Yes, on the back of chattel slaves, but it's your country. You wrote the laws. We didn't write these laws. Y'all wrote the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. We didn't write those laws. Y'all the ones were the abolitionists. Y'all the ones who built the Underground Railroad. We mentioned Harriet Tubman. We mentioned Harriet Tubman because Harriet Tubman, thank God for Harriet Tubman. But if there was no Underground Railroad, there would be no Harriet Tubman. You understand what I'm saying? Quakers did that. They built that railroad. And you don't appreciate that. And a lot of people don't appreciate it because they don't know about it. Frederick Douglass himself, he was taught by a white woman how to read. You see, he was half white himself. You see, and on the story goes. Martin Luther King, we mentioned that in the article, that Martin Luther King himself said there would not have been a 1960 civil rights movement if it weren't for Jewish money. White Ashkenazi Jews participated in that. And other white folks, and the point I'm trying to make, folks, is if we're going to heal and defend this country from the foreign vector that's come into our wound, we've got to get honest with each other. You may not like the guy. He's a Democrat. And frankly, it doesn't really matter. Some people are Democrats, some people are Republicans, some people are independents. But this matter of the 14th Amendment and this race issue is non-political. It's a moral issue. It's a moral issue. And Eric Holder said 1 month into Mr. Obama's presidency, he said that America is a nation of cowards because we refuse to have an in-depth conversation about race. And we haven't had it yet. We still haven't had it. I believe, though, however, here in Arizona, of all places, who'd have thunk it, that conversation will begin here. And we're going to cut deep into the wound. And oftentimes when you go to heal a wound, it's going to hurt. It's going to sting, especially with the antiseptic in there. But if we know the doctor is good and kind and really wants to heal you, you will submit to the pain. And when we talk about the racial issue, yes, there's going to be pain. But we've got to be honest that it can no longer be black guys saying to white guys, y'all racist, y'all need to change, y'all need to reform, y'all. And you mess around and got yourselves stuck in political correct speech. And you're frozen. And you're paralyzed. It's got to be a two-way street because Dr. King said, I dreamed that one day the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners, the black lives and the white lives will sit down over the matter and they will conversate. And they will not point the finger at each other, but they'll point the finger at themselves and say, here is my wound. What does he say in the scriptures? Confess your faults one to another. Pray for one another that you may be healed. Not point the finger at one another and hope the other guy gets healed. Because hold on, homeboy, you're sick too. And let me say something else, and I'm going to wind this down because we're going to move on. One of the biggest fallacies and myths is that the white guys, the Portuguese, the Spaniards, the English, the Europeans went into Africa, ran the brothers down in their own hood, brought them to the forts, the slave forts, and put them on the slave ships. And them some bad white boys do something like that. Just like I cannot run down some cat in Appalachian Mountain, some white cat, I cannot run that cat down Appalachian Mountain, drag him into my slavery. Them hillbillies will string me up out there. But you know what? You know what? If the white boys are running and grabbing white boys and bringing them out to me, we got a different ball game. See, you can't run me down in my hood, and I can't run you down in your hood. And what I've finally come to realize, folks, after studying scholars, it's not out of my head, it's out of scholars. What's that guy's name that had the beer festival with Obama, with the police officer? What was the name? Gage, Louis Gage, yeah. He says, and many other scholars are saying it, he's out about it, most of them saying, you know what, 90% of the slave trade was us. Us. We did that. And see, one of the reasons that God has not delivered us black folks is because we have not been honest with our part in slavery. And if we get on and say, you know, Lord, yeah, we don't excuse what our white brothers did, and they know what they did. They know what they did was wrong. And if you listen to them, they keep saying it. Senator Pierce talked about it earlier today. But we act like we had nothing to do with it. I contend with you that if we had not been gang-banging and set tripping in Africa with one another, none of this would have happened. And we have to take responsibility for that. And the day that we take responsibility for that is the day that our minds will begin to clear up, and that our creativity will begin to happen, and God will bless us, and we will begin to heal. And what you're seeing in Chicago, in Los Angeles, in the urban cities around the country, even though we have a Martin Luther King holiday, we got an African-American president, we got famous athletes and executives, and yet our brothers, we cry Black Lives Matter. And the first person we kill is ourselves. And people don't understand that. And they ask me, Ted, what's wrong with your people? I said, what's wrong with my people is the same thing be wrong with your people if they went through what they went through. It's not about race. It's about an experience. And what you're seeing with my people is my ancestors are fighting. They're continuing to fight. We never had a reprieve. Even when we spent 245 years in chattel slavery, it was an institution. When that was ended, by what those white boys did out there, when that was ended, there was no reprieve. There was no therapy. There was no rectification of these folks. And that was generations of damage yet to come. We went directly into Jim Crowism, where we was deliberately, by law, degenerated. And we're going to suffer for yet generations to come. We never got healing from that. And then in 1964, which was a poisonous pill, that 1964 Civil Rights Act, because it was a poison hidden in there. There's those failed government programs. Look at us. We never stood a chance. We didn't ask to come here. We're here, and we never got it fixed. And so consequently, we have picked up where our ancestors left off on the continent, warring with one another. It is my hope and prayer and belief and intent that we black folks will get naked, but you white folks get naked. We all got the same thing. God made us equal, and when we get honest, and the hidden part, He will make us. What y'all mumbling about? Okay. You know what I mean, don't you, Gabby? Thanks, Gabby. He said he desires truth in the inward parts, and in the hidden parts, He will make us to know wisdom. And later I'll speak more about the 14th Amendment, the way He has shown me how it works for us. And welcome, everybody. We appreciate you all for being here. And God bless you. Thank you.
Well, we're about to get into even more of the meat of this, and we have several people that will be speaking. So if you guys would like to kind of assemble behind me to get ready, because there's another mic, and you can kind of pass it. Maybe you can assemble up here wherever you'd like to be. But one of the things in listening to what Ted was saying, and we talked about politically correctness, and what I think my message whenever I'm talking, what I need to hear and what would make me happy is to have more fearless white people that aren't afraid because the Democrats are going to immediately play that race card. They have the sex card and they have the race card. And what do? You know, they're so afraid, and because they call you a racist, and where do you come back with that? And it's just being able to have the information about the 14th Amendment and just the history and what this country was built on. And we have to remember that it's not an American sin of slavery, it's a Democrat sin of slavery on America. And it was the Democrat laws, Jim Crow and all the other things, and then they throw it back at me and say Dixiecrats and the Republican Party switch, and they give you that whole thing. And then I said, okay, let's forget about the past. let's just focus on cities like Chicago, where I'm from, and Ferguson and Baltimore. Baltimore, they love to brag, it's a chocolate city, meaning that they're all Democrats, chocolate, the mayor, what we call them aldermen, the councilmen, and everybody else were black people that look just like them. And that's what it's not about. It's about what you feel and your, or not feeling, oh, I sound like a Democrat. It's about your core values and your beliefs, and that's what gets me. You have to be fearless, and it's okay to be a Republican, even though they're going to call you a racist immediately, because I was 15 years old when Ronald Reagan was elected, and I'm living in the ghetto on the west side of Chicago. All my mother's friends and neighbors would say to me, and I didn't know, I'm working at McDonald's, paying my tuition to go to Catholic schools, and all I cared about was buying Calvin Klein jeans and some Bass, whatever. I called myself a prep or whatever. That's all I cared about. But I would hear them say that if Ronald Reagan was elected, we were going to be slaves again. I remember that so clearly. And I'm kind of thinking, really? But I'm like still just going to work and school and not paying attention. And I was like, no, that couldn't happen. But they assured me that if a white Republican got back in office, we were going to be slaves again. And I just thought that's that kind of fear mentality to keep you needy on that donkey plantation. Being a Republican, that's for rich white people. And I'm thinking, well, Kennedy's a pretty rich, pretty white too. But anyway. And it just blew me away. So I'm living in the ghetto where there are no white people. It's all run by Democrats of every color. But then I get on the bus where my mother had sent me to this private school only because her best friend's daughter didn't get in 2 years ago. So she had to show her up and make me go to this school. And I went to the school in Marquette Park. And if you're familiar with Chicago, it's where the KKK used to march. This is 1979. And this is where, and the only time I had ever been in that neighborhood as a Girl Scout, I went bowling. And bowling alleys in the black neighborhood. So we had to go there to bowl. And where we standing at the bus stop, somebody drove by and called us the N-word. So then fast forward to 3 years later, my mother's like, you're going to school in Marquette Park. And I'm, no, please. And I think about living there. So every day I'm going back and forward. And then when the first black mayor got elected, I'm at school. I'm a senior at this point. I voted for him, and it's pretty cool. And I walk in. I'm the only one other black girl in my homeroom class. And literally, this Chicago, very Democrat, very... Yes, just Democrat. So they're pretty racist. Anyway, she walks in and throws herself on the desk and says, oh, no, black people will move in my neighborhood. And I'm thinking, I'm standing right here. I can see you and hear you. She was so upset that we had gotten a black mayor. And she was right. Fast forward 30 years later, it's a lot of black people in Marquette Park. But I just think about me going back and forth between those two worlds and all these misnomers of what it meant. And really quick, and I'm going to let them talk, but if somebody had told me when I was 14 years old, standing at the bus stop, because school got out at 2:55, and if we didn't get on that bus by 3, the other boys' schools would ride by and call us the N-word, whatever. If somebody had said to me, you're going to be more comfortable here one day than you are where you grew up, because because of my policies and beliefs, I started a reunion page on Facebook really quick with all the black people I had grown from school from 2nd grade through 8th grade, and this is so awesome, and it's a Catholic school, and it's small, and it was just so great. And then once I hosted the event in my home. I had the nuns and the lay teachers in my home. It was such a great day, and we do it again a couple years later. I'm now on the radio. I'm a Republican. I got kicked out of my own group that I created, and they were like, who is this woman in this group? I'm like, it's my group. And when I walk into my reunion, I got kicked out of the reunion. I couldn't even go to it. So this is my people that look like me. Kicked me out because I didn't vote for Obama. But here with the girls that were all supposedly racist, this 30 years later, and they were all daily Democrats. And if you don't know what that means, you got to look it up. But I walk into my reunion, the only black in the reunion, because the black girls, they said, you don't want to go to a reunion. I'm like, I'm going. I paid my tuition for 4 years, and I'm going to go and enjoy this. But they greet me with open arms, even though they're Democrats, just like the black people that I grew up. And they follow my crazy, and they know how I feel about homosexuality and the lesbian or her husband and her wife with the 4 kids. They welcome and say hi to me. But my own people, people that look like you, and that's what's so great about this country is that you can, you never know. And I think about how we serve a God of second chances, and how this is a country of second chances is what's so great. And you can do things out of order, but once you get back on track, and the fundamental beliefs of this country, that anybody born here has won the genetic lottery. And stop whining about I'm black and I can't have. And that's not, if you can't have it, it's probably because you're living in a city run by Democrats. But I'm going to let them talk. We have another mic. Hold on.
This arrangement here is for Ted the Tall. I'm Robin the Medium. Pleased to meet you. We will be reading a series of documents today that you are all familiar with, and I get to start off. I am a retired, disabled Gulf War veteran of the United States Air Force. I am, thank you. I am a descendant of chattel, meaning human property, slaves. I'm a child of God, and I'm an American. And for those seats that sit empty here today, I believe that they are filled, because, you know, I'm spiritually weird and stuff. But I believe that they are filled by the spirits of those 740,000 young white men and boys who laid down their lives for the matter of black lives. For those 38,000 black men who fought in the Civil War and laid down their lives for the matter of black lives. And for those who have gone before me, my mother, my father, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, and all those that came before me, who I believe were with us today, who are supporting us in this effort that they worked so hard for. We are not alone. Today I read from the Declaration of Independence, adopted by Congress on July 4th, 1776. The unanimous declaration of the 13th United States of America becoming independent from Mother England. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bonds which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation, or impel them to step off. They didn't say step off, that was me. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. Gee, what might those causes be? And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations and pursuing invariably the same object evinces, a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former system of government. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America and General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, due in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states. that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown. That's interesting, isn't it? All allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved. And that as free and independent states, they have the full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
My name is Bruce Lindquist. I'm a candidate for the Arizona State House, District 27. And I am currently running against Reginald Bolin. He is the gentleman that invoked his diversity clause and had us move here. I personally believe it's an opportunity. All good things do not start out on a smooth road. The United States government and all of that we've gone through has not been a smooth trail. We're here. We're the blessed few that are here by God's grace, and He will lead us on. And thank you, Ted, for bringing me into this circle. I have met some great people. I feel like I'm doing something now that I haven't been doing before. And for that, again, I thank you. And you too, Ron, I'm sorry. The Emancipation Proclamation, enacted by President Abraham Lincoln. A proclamation whereas, on September 22nd, in the year of our Lord, 1862, a proclamation issued by the President of the United States containing, among other things, the following, to wit. Before I go on, please be aware that the Civil War was being raged at this time. President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation not for the northern black people, but for the southern slaves that were still incarcerated under the southern states. That on this first day of January in the year of our Lord, 1863, all persons held as slaves within the state's designated part of a state, that people thereof shall then be in rebellion against the United States. That's those forces that were on the other side of the war. Shall then and henceforth be forever free, and the executive of the government of the United States, including the military, the naval authority thereof, will recognize and maintain the freedom of such persons, and will do no act or acts to repress such persons of any of them, and in any efforts to make more for them than actual freedom. Gosh, this is harder than I thought. And by the virtue of the power and for the purpose set forth, I order and declare that all persons held as slaves within a designated states and parts of states are henceforth shall be free, and that the executive government of the United States, including the military naval authorities thereof, will recognize and maintain all of the freedom of said persons. I hereby adjoin upon the people so to declare free, to abstain from any and all violence, unnecessary self-defense, and recommend to them that in all cases, when allowed, their labor faithfully for reasonable wages. It's an interesting part that I hadn't realized. And further declare to make known such persons of suitable condition will be received into the Army of the United States, to garrisons, forts, position stations, and other places, and to man vessels for all sorts of services. Done at the city of Washington, this first day of January, I declare of our Lord on 1863 and the independence of the United States of America, this 87th, by the President Abraham Lincoln. This is a short excerpt. You go through and read this, and it's very powerful. And we'll continue to talk about that. And once again, thank you, Ted, and welcome all to the beginning.
Hello, everybody. My name's George Sprankle, and I'm another Marine. Seems like we're having a reunion here today. And I've been asked to read the Gettysburg Address from November 19th, 1863. U.S. President Abraham Lincoln. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. No other war has been like it in all human history. We are met on the great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as the final resting place for those who gave their lives that the nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hollow the ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. I've also been asked to read Lincoln's second inaugural address. On the occasion corresponding to this 4 years ago, all thoughts were anxiously directed to the impending Civil War. All dreaded it. All sought to avert it. While the inaugural address was being delivered from this place, devoted altogether to saving the Union without war, insurgent agents were in the city seeking to destroy it without war, seeking to dissolve the Union and divide effects by negotiation. Both parties depreciated war, but one of them would make war rather than let the nation survive, and the other would accept war rather than let it perish. and the war came. 1/8 of the whole population were colored slaves, not distributed generally over the Union, but localized in the southern part of it. These slaves constituted a particular and powerful interest. All knew that this interest was somehow the cause of the war. To strengthen, perpetuate, and extend this interest was the object for which the insurgents would rend the Union even by war, while the government claimed no right to do more than to restrict the territorial enlargement of it. Neither party expected for the war the magnitude or the duration which it has already attained. Neither anticipated that the cause of the conflict might cease with, or even before the conflict itself could cease. Each looked for an easier triumph and a result less fundamental and astounding. Both read the Bible and pray to the same God, and each invokes his aid against the other. It would seem strange that any man who dared to ask a just God's assistance in wringing their bread from the sweat of other men's faces. But let us judge not, that we not be judged. The prayers of both could not be answered. That of neither has been answered fully. The Almighty has his own purposes. Woe unto the world because of offenses, for it must need that offenses come. But woe to the man by whom the offense cometh. If we shall suppose that American slavery is one of those offenses which in the providence of God must needs come, but which having continued through his appointed time, he now wills to remove, and that he gives to both North and South this terrible war as the woe due to those by whom the offense came. Shall we discern therein any departure from those divine attributes which the believers in a living God always ascribe to him? Fondly do we hope, firmly do we pray, that this almighty scourge of war may speedily pass away. Yet if God wills that it continue until all the wealth piled by the bondsman's 250 years of unrequited toil shall be sunk, and every drop of blood drawn with the lash shall be paid by another drawn with a sword, as was said 3,000 years ago. So still it must be paid. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. With malice toward none and charity for all, with firmness in the right of God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, for his widow and for his orphan, to do all that may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations. Thank you.
I think most of you probably know me, but those that don't, I'm Valerie Roller. And Ted, I'm honored to be your friend. Your friendship means a lot to me, and we've known each other for a very, very long time. I was asked to read excerpts from the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. The United States Constitution concerning slavery and involuntary servitude, 13th Amendment, Section 1. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States, or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Section 2. Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. 14th Amendment. Rights guaranteed, privileges and immunities of citizenship, due process, and equal protection. The amendment text, Section 1. All persons born or naturalized in the United States are subject to the jurisdiction thereof, are citizens of the United States, and of the state within they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which may abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Section 2. Representatives shall be apportioned among the several states according to their respective numbers, counting the whole number of persons in each state, excluding Indians not taxed. But when the right to vote at any election for the choice of electors for President and Vice President of the United States, representatives in Congress, the executive and judicial branches of state, or the members of legislatures thereof, is denied to any of the male inhabitants of such state, being 21 years of age, the citizen of the United States, or any way abridged, except for participation in rebellion or other crime, the basis of representation therein shall be reduced to a proportion which is the number of such male citizens shall bear to the whole number of male citizens 21 years of age in each state. That's a mouthful. Section 3. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state, who having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. But Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each House, remove such disability. Section 4. The validity of the public debt of the United States, authorized by law, including debts incurred for payment of pensions and bounties for services in suppressing insurrection or rebellion, shall not be questioned, but neither the United States or any state shall assume or pay any debt or obligation incurred in aid of insurrection or rebellion against the United States, or any claim for the loss of emancipation of any slave, but all such debts, obligations, and claims shall be held illegal and void. Section 5. The Congress shall have power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. 15th Amendment. Right of black citizens to vote. Section 1. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Section 2. The Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation.
The Civil Rights Act of 1866. Act of April 9th, 1866. Ratified December 6, 1868. This was an act that had been vetoed by the then president after the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. The Senate voted, and the Republican House side voted, and it was ratified on April 9th. U.S. citizens for freed slaves and their descendants. Section 1. Be it enacted by the Senate and the House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress Assembly, that all persons born in the United States and not subject to a foreign power, excluding Indians not taxed, are hereby declared citizens of the United States. And as such citizens of every race, color, without regard to any provision, condition of slavery, or involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime thereof, the part shall be duly convicted, shall have the same right in every state and territory of the United States to make and enforce contracts, sue, be parties, give evidence, to inherit, to purchase, to lease, to sell, to hold, and convey real and personal properties. and to the full and equal benefit of all laws and proceedings for the security of persons, property, as